7 World War II home defense tricks so powerful, burglars refuse to enter. Before we get into this, make sure you subscribe to the channel and leave a comment below, because this channel exists for people who care deeply about real history, real survival lessons, and knowledge that actually mattered when lives were on the line. If you're serious about wartime survival history and want more content like this, subscribing helps keep these stories alive and accurately told. Now let's start properly. During the Second World War, home defense was not a hobby, a trend, or an online debate. It was a daily reality. Civilians across Europe, Britain, and parts of Asia lived under blackout conditions, rationing, air raids, and the constant fear of intrusion, looting, or enemy reconnaissance. What's fascinating is that many of the defensive techniques developed by ordinary families during the war were not about weapons, but about psychology, deterrence, and control of space. These methods were designed to make a house look like the worst possible target. Burglars, deserters, and opportunistic criminals learned quickly which homes to avoid. That same logic still applies today. How wartime civilians used layered visibility control to protect their homes. One of the most powerful home defense concepts during World War II was visibility control. In blackout-era Britain, every household was required to prevent light from escaping at night. But people quickly learned to turn this necessity into a defensive advantage. Homes that revealed nothing gave intruders no information. You couldn't tell if someone was awake, armed, or waiting. Civilians reinforced curtains with heavy fabric, layered blankets over windows, and blocked cracks around doors. The practical takeaway today is straightforward. Control what outsiders can see. Use layered window coverings at night, avoid predictable lighting patterns, and make sure your interior activity is not visible from outside. A burglar who cannot read a house will often move on to one that offers clearer signals. Why sound discipline became a silent alarm system. During the war, sound travelled far in quiet, darkened neighbourhoods. Civilians became acutely aware of how footsteps, doors, and loose objects could betray movement. Many households deliberately placed gravel, broken brick or scrap metal near entry points so that anyone approaching would create noise. Others tied tin cans or metal scraps to gates and fences. This was not crude improvisation. It was deliberate early warning. In modern terms, this translates into environmental alarms that don't rely on electricity. Gravel paths near windows, loose stones near fences, or even deliberately creaky gate hinges can provide advance notice. World War II civilians understood that hearing an intruder 10 seconds earlier could be the difference between safety and disaster. So, let's talk about how the appearance of occupancy discouraged intruders. During the war, empty houses were honestly prime targets during air raids or evacuations. To counter this, civilians made their homes look occupied even when they weren't. For example, boots were left by doors, coats were hung visibly, and furniture was rearranged so shadows suggested movement when curtains shifted. Some families even rotated lighting patterns using oil lamps or timed routines. The lesson here is really about signalling risk. Burglars prefer certainty and, frankly, low resistance. If a house appears lived in, irregular, and unpredictable, it becomes unattractive. Today, you can apply this by varying your routines, using timed lights inconsistently, and avoiding visual signs of long-term absence. Now, let's consider how controlled choke points replaced brute force defense. Very few civilians had weapons, and those who did, well, rarely relied on them first. Instead, homes were organized so that any intruder had to pass through narrow, controlled spaces. Hallways were cluttered intentionally, furniture was positioned to slow movement, and doors were reinforced internally rather than externally. This forced anyone entering to move slowly and noisily. The practical application is spatial defense. So, avoid wide, clear paths from doors to bedrooms. Use furniture, shelving, or interior partitions to create deliberate movement restrictions. WWII households turned ordinary rooms into defensive terrain, all without drawing attention from authorities or enemies. And then there's the question of why misleading entry points were deliberately created. Some families intentionally made one entrance look weak while reinforcing another. A visibly old door might conceal an internal bar, while a newer-looking entrance was actually less accessible. This tactic really exploited assumption. Intruders choose what looks easiest. Once committed, they faced resistance they did not expect. The modern equivalent is subtle reinforcement. Strengthen doors and windows internally rather than advertising security with excessive hardware. WWII civilians understood that obvious defences invite testing, while hidden ones end attempts quickly. How communal awareness replaced individual isolation. One of the most underestimated World War II home defence strategies was neighbourhood coordination. In many areas, residents developed informal watch systems. A light left on at an unusual hour, a curtain moved twice, or a radio played briefly could signal concern. These were not formal systems, but shared understanding. The lesson is that isolated homes are vulnerable, while connected ones are resilient. Today, this means knowing neighbours, sharing awareness, and establishing simple, agreed-upon signals. World War II civilians survived because defence was collective, not individual. Why psychological deterrence mattered more than physical force. Perhaps the most important lesson from World War II home defence is that deterrence worked better than confrontation. Civilians aimed to make homes feel unpredictable, alert, and costly to approach. Burglars and looters learned patterns quickly and avoided houses that felt wrong. The same principle applies today. Effective home defence is about convincing an intruder that entering is a mistake before they ever touch the door. World War II households succeeded not because they fought intruders, but because intruders chose not to engage. These 7 World War II home defence tricks are powerful because they were forged under real pressure, tested by real threats and refined by people who had no margin for error. They remain relevant because, honestly, human behaviour hasn't changed. Opportunists still seek certainty, speed, and low risk. If this kind of deep, practical wartime history matters to you, subscribe to the channel. Share this video with fellow history buffs and survivalists, and leave a comment with which World War II civilian tactic surprised you the most. That engagement helps keep serious historical knowledge alive and accessible.